I wasn't there for their opinion. I was there to learn how to be better at my craft. And so some of the stuff that they said, I just didn't even pay attention to it. I was more interested in like, how do I make my voice stronger? Because I wasn't a fiction writer.
What's good? I'm Nikisha Elise Williams, and this is Black and Published, bringing you the journeys of writers, poets, playwrights, and storytellers of all kinds. Today's guest is Toni Ann Johnson, author of the short story collection, Light Skin Gone to Waste, a linked collection of 10 stories based on Toni Ann's real-life experiences with her mother and father.
I spent more time with the character based on my mother than I spent with my father. Her voice is in my head, her perspective, like I get her. Her rage was so piercing that it was very clear to me where she was coming from and, you know, how she felt.
A trained actress and an accomplished screenwriter, Toni Ann came to fiction later in life and earned an MFA from Antioch University in Los Angeles. Even though she teaches fiction and screenwriting now, Toni Ann explains why she didn't follow any of the advice she received in her workshops. Plus, how she overcame her insecurity as a writer. And why she says this collection contributes to the ever-expanding conversation about what it means to be Black in America. Toni Ann shares her perspective when Black and Published continues. Toni Ann, my first question for you is, when did you know that you were a writer?
I knew I wanted to be a writer when I was very young. I remember being 10 years old and saying I wanted to write a book, but I had no idea how to go about it. I had just started really getting into books and reading books and loving books. So I knew I wanted to write, but there were a lot of things I wanted to do. And I didn't actually get to it until I was 19 and in college. And I wrote something, it was a screenplay actually, and that my professor at the time, his name was Arnaud Dussault at NYU. He was very encouraging. And that's when I thought, oh, maybe I can do this. I wanted to act, but I thought maybe I can do this as well.
Were you considering doing the Sylvester Stallone route where you write your screenplay and then you write yourself into Hollywood and your big break and everything like that? Like he did.
I did actually do that. So I wrote a play called Gramercy Park is Closed to the Public. And it was a part for me to play. The movie did not get made, but it launched my screenwriting career. And I presented the play to Hollywood. We did a staged reading. Della Reese was in it. She played my grandmother. And we presented it for all these Hollywood executives and producers. And I started working immediately as a screenwriter and worked for quite a number of years. And that was it was my second career. My first career was as an actress. I was the lead in the play. And the play got produced again without me. Nicole Ari Parker did the play at Vassar as part of the New York Stage and Film Company's Powerhouse season. I didn't get to do the part. They weren't interested in me for the part. So she ended up doing the part. That movie didn't get made, but I'm still trying, actually. So all these years later, I think it's still a relevant story, so.
This resume that you have is just extensive and exhaustive and long. So you started as an actress, you tried to write yourself into this career, and then that launched your screenwriting career. So what made you come back to like wanting to do books?
Well, I hadn't written a book. I was writing lots of screenplays, but what happened after about a decade is people were making me feel insecure about my writing and my voice. So I was hired to write, but they just wanted me to write things the way they would write them so that it sounded like their voice. And I was beginning to lose my own voice and my confidence. And I had made quite a bit of money and I just kind of got sick of it. So I took a break. I bought a house in South Los Angeles. I left my fancy Beverly Hills neighborhood and I holed up in my little house by myself for a few years. And I wrote my first novel and it didn't sell. And when it didn't sell, I went back to school. I got an MFA in creative writing from Antioch University, Los Angeles. And that's where I started the book that's coming out now, the story collection. But when I came out of school, I rewrote that novel, and then I was able to get that published a few years later, quite a few years later, actually. Like 4 years after school, I got it published.
And that's Remedy for a Broken Angel?
Yes.
All right. So you said that you began to feel insecure in your screenwriting, or were made to feel that way about people who basically wanted you to ghostwrite for them.
I wouldn't say it was ghostwriting, because I was getting credit, but the producers and the executives, they owned these properties, and I was a writer for hire. And so my opinion, my voice, my perspective, it seemed to be what I was hired for. But once on the project, they didn't want my opinion or my voice or my perspective. And most of the times, these stories were about race. And I felt a lot of responsibility to get things right. And a lot of these people didn't know what they were talking about. They didn't understand Black culture, or they didn't have a love of Black culture or even Black humanity. And I was being asked to do things that I did not believe in. I didn't even want my name on them. I didn't want to spend my life writing that. I wanted to dedicate my life to writing what I wanted to talk about and what I wanted to say. I was no longer interested in executing other people's ideas, especially when I felt those ideas didn't reflect my community in its full humanity.
So then in wanting to spend your life writing a perspective that reflected your own experience, I guess what I was trying to get to with my previous question is that writing, especially publishing books and short story collections and things like that, is a field that is riddled with rejection and can cause some of the same insecurity. And you talked about, going to holding up and writing your first novel and then going to get your MFA and eventually releasing it later and working on your stories there. Did you face any of those same feelings that you were facing in Hollywood with your screenwriting while you were working on your own collection and novel? And how did you overcome that?
I did at times, like in workshops, sometimes sometimes comments from particularly young white men, didn't understand or care about my story, just didn't feel any value in my story. So yes, but I didn't care, because by that time I was in my 40s, and these were children in their 20s. And I was just like, yeah. I just didn't care. So, and sometimes I did get pushback from professors too that I didn't agree with, but I also got a lot of help and knowledge. And I wasn't there for their opinion. I was there to learn how to be better at my craft. And so some of the stuff that they said, I just didn't even pay attention to it. I was more interested in, like, how do I make my voice stronger? How do I write, metaphors and similes better? How do I do all the things that will make me a better fiction writer? Because I wasn't a fiction writer. I was a dramatic writer. And so I was good at dialogue, but my prose wasn't really that good. I didn't have a prose style. I hadn't found my prose style. And what ended up happening, I think, is that I blended my skill with voice and dialogue into my prose. And so I almost don't know how to write prose without the voice of a character. I don't really know how to write a distant third. It's always close third, So I just sort of figured out what worked naturally for me. And I guess I rose above some of that criticism. And sure, I got it. I mean, all Black writers in programs where, the dominant culture is white, we always experience something that, tries to shut us down. And you can let it shut you down and get angry. But I was so used to it by then. I was so used to hearing that nonsense that I was able to just push through it and move along.
Yeah, Dottie Walton said something similar when she was on the show in season 1 about when she went to Iowa, and it was after she had turned 40, and it was just like, yeah, you know what a good note is, and you know what and somebody's opinion is.
Exactly.
A question for you is, when you were in the program, you said you worked on some of these stories there as well as the novel.
I did. Yeah.
When I had Dantil Moniz on the show in season one, she talked about, workshopping her stories, but holding her novel close to the vest because she didn't want that kind of feedback of the workshop
Mm,
to
that's smart.
infiltrate her creative process. Did you do something similar with the
I
collectible you
didn't.
had there?
I wasn't wise enough to do that. I wish I had, but I did submit portions of my novel to two different mentors, and they both didn't like it, and they both told me a version of, you should throw this out and start over, write another novel. But I didn't do that. I didn't listen to anybody. I had negative criticism of that novel, but I listened to myself, and I submitted that novel when it came out to the NAACP Image Awards, and I got nominated. And so I was like, ugh.
I
Yeah, what you say?
love it.
Yeah. So yeah, and if I had listened to those mentors, I wouldn't have finished the first novel, and I wouldn't have been nominated for an NAACP Image Award. So I think, at a certain point, if you're an older writer, you just know what is right for you, and you just have to listen to your own voice. I did not have that ability as a younger writer. I was insecure, and I was so craving the validation of somebody telling me that my work was good. And when they told me that my work was bad, I took it to heart. But as I got older, I'm just like, nah, I know what good is, and I know what's not. I know when my work is not working, usually. Sometimes I'm wrong, but often I can tell when it needs to be revised, and I will hold it back. But when I think something is good, I'll submit it.
So I know that with age comes wisdom, but I still want to know, how do you get over that insecurity and that lack of confidence and that need for validation? Because it sounds like, oh, I got older and I know, but it's like, but how?
Well, I guess part of it is just getting the validation from outside of those people. See, I wasn't writing to satisfy them. I was writing to get published, and I was writing to win awards. Because I didn't have a big press or any like big machine behind me, my strategy was, let me submit for all the awards that I'm eligible for and try to get some recognition that way to start building my career as a fiction writer. So I can put in my bio, nominated for an NAACP Image Award. That was all I started with. I didn't have anything else. I didn't have any stories at that point. All I had was that one book. And so it was getting that validation and then starting to publish stories. And then as I started to publish stories and I was getting feedback, that gave me more confidence. And I had behind me a previous career that I had made a living at. And I had, I support myself because of that previous career. And so I had some confidence that built over the course of a career. And I do really feel like there is something to the aging process, becoming more comfortable with yourself. I was insecure with who I was early in my career. And so if you're insecure with who you are, any criticism pings at that place where you feel fraudulent or you feel like you're not good enough or you don't belong. And then as you start, if you are able to build your confidence that comes with age and comes with experience, those things can't penetrate you as much. And I guess I skipped over part of my answer, which should have been some spiritual work, some, therapy. So all the things that people do to fortify themselves as human beings, I did all those things. And I think part of it was also leaving Beverly Hills. I bought a little house in South Central. And I fixed this house up and I became part of the community. I invested in the community with my time. I planted trees. I rooted myself in a community and I became close with my neighbors. I made myself a life separate from the movie business, separate from the white world. And I had never had that experience and I flourished in that experience.
Okay, so the two goals: get published and get awards. We know you got the awards because you got published. So how did you get published? Take us through the journey.
So the first book got published after I had an agent who sent out the first version of the book and then it didn't sell. And she was going to look at the second version, but 6 months in, she still hadn't read it. And I was just getting I was losing my patience. And so a friend of mine had read the book, and her mother was a well-known author, Kit Reed, and Kit Reed advised me to send it to Akashic Books. And they passed on the book, but they told me that the book went to committee, which was a sign to me, like if the book made it, it was good enough that they actually talked about it. I thought, okay, well, maybe I am on the right track. And so I decided to stop waiting for the agent and just go the small press route. And I got published because I joined for $26 for a subscription. I joined it was the writer's market online or something. And I put my search, multicultural, music, female, I put all these like prompts in the search, and this company came up, Nortia Press, and I submitted to them. They read it within maybe 2 months and called me and asked me if the rights were still available. And I was like, yes. And they published it. And I didn't know anything about them, but it was a good experience. It was a young publisher who owned the company, and he published international themed work, nonfiction and fiction. And my book took place partly in Bermuda. And so that was enough of an international thread for him to take the book on. And, they were a small press, so there wasn't a lot that they did. We didn't have a lot of publicity or anything, but I was a hustler to like send it everywhere, submit it everywhere, and, do in-person readings and stuff. And so I just promoted it myself. So that was the first thing. The second publishing story is longer, and it's probably a better story. The second one is actually the novella, and that was through a contest. I won a novella contest with Accents Publishing, and the win came with publication. That was my novella Homegoing, which is connected to this third book called Light Skin Gone to Waste. So I worked on that book with an agent for 5 years. I had started sending her the stories that I came out of graduate school with, and she liked them, and we worked on the stories together. And over the course of time, after the first draft, it was a story collection, and she decided that she wanted to try to sell it as a novel. It was so linked that she thought it would work better as a novel. But then that required me to do a bunch of different things to it, and she wanted me to add all these stories to it. So I ended up having 2 novellas, all these stories. The book was 500 pages long, and it went out like that, as a 500-page novel with all like this kaleidoscope of voices. So there was the neighbor's POV, there was the grandmother's POV, the sister's POV. It went out to 26 editors, and they all passed. I never understood the book as a novel, but I trusted, that this was a publishing professional. She was in the business of selling books, and I wanted to sell a book. I wanted to make some money on a book for once.
That part.
I trusted that, but it didn't work. It didn't work. The book didn't sell and I had spent all those years doing everything I was asked to do to make this book ready for publication and sale. It didn't sell. So I just kind of went into a funk, but then I was in this writing group, and my friend Cynthia Bond, who's a wonderful writer and Oprah Book Club pick, told me, you should look at poets and writers and see what's available to submit, like see where you might submit some of the stories or parts of the book or whatever. And I saw the Flannery O'Connor Award submissions call, and I saw that Roxane Gay was the judge. But the word count limit was 75,000 words. My book was over 150,000 words. So I pulled out, like at the last minute, I pulled out all these extra stories, and I prioritized the character Maddie and made the book much smaller, a bit more cohesive. And I sent that in, and it won. And the win came with publication by UGA Press. So that's how I got that one published.
Let's do the reading, and then I get to ask you all my questions about Philip and his trifling self, and Maddie, Elma,
okay,
and their neighbor.
Black and Published family, it's time for the reading. Toni Ann Johnson's short story collection, Light Skin Gone to Waste, is a linked collection about the Arrington family and their pioneering move to an all-white enclave just outside New York City in the early 60s. Though their light-skin privilege gives them all the trappings of the good life, young Maddie still can't escape the tentacles of racism. Throughout the stories we see Maddie try to fit in with her friends and neighbors as her home life falls apart, and she eventually learns the only thing she can hold on to is the love she finds for herself. Here's Toni Ann.
So this is time travel. Hoboken, New Jersey, 1989, Maddie. 21 years later, I'll run into you outside the PATH station in Hoboken in front of the wide green awning that leads down to the trains. Sounds of rumbling below and the din of chatter swirling. You'll yell my name above the noise, saying it like a question, as if you could actually be unsure that it's me. I'll turn and totter on the top step, just in time. Seconds later, and I'd be swept into the stream of bodies flowing to the tracks. It'll be shortly after 5 p.m. on a late September weekday, humid and sunny, with air that smells of commuters caught in unexpected high heat. Perspiration will roll down my back and leak between the butt cheeks you used to make fun of. I'll squint against the sun and stare at you. You'll smile with closed lips and brown eyes that will be gentler than I remember. Several seconds will pass before you'll say, "Wow, first time I've ever seen you away from home. Where are you living these days?" "Manhattan," I'll say. "Oh, the big city," you'll say, like it's a truly good thing. I'll nod. I won't ask you anything. I'll look at you and wait. Suits of blue, black, gray, and tan will dodge and whoosh past us in both directions, heels clicking on concrete, huffs and impatient scoffs. We'll be in the way. I'll shield my eyes with one hand and be silent for so long, it'll feel impolite. You'll hold a cheap gray suit jacket over one shoulder, your white collared shirt bearing sweat marks under the arms. You'll smell of obsession for men, alluring and more sophisticated than the Old Spice I used to notice at the bus stop during high school when you rarely spoke to me. Your chest will be broad and you'll be slim like me, which will mean something because 21 years earlier, we were chubby 6-year-olds foraging together for ding-dongs and Oreos my mother hid deep in the pantry so we wouldn't overeat. We'd find them and eat them all, and that thrill was a bond we shared. But being connoisseurs of Nabisco cookies and Hostess snack cakes, and being buddies from the time we could crawl, never made our bond as strong as the one you shared with every kid in the neighborhood but me. Someone will bump into you and you'll fall into me and grab my arm before I lose my balance on the top step. "Sorry, you all right?" you'll ask. I'll say, "Fine, thanks," and take my arm back. That day, 21 years after I lost you, I'll be wearing a tomato red kufi atop unapologetically kinky hair, wild kinks I tamed the soul out of when I lived across the street from you, hoping straight hair would make me pretty and more like everyone else. But you called me an ugly, bubble-butted nigger at the bus stop. Elementary school became junior high, which turned into high school, and I barely existed. You had all those years to speak to me. That day I'll wonder, why now? I'll have on black chunky boots and a dress that's lime green like Lifesavers candies. Red, black, and green are Pan-African colors, and I'll wear them because at the time I'll be mad and militant saying fuck you to you and everyone else from home who said my color, my hair, and my big butt made me ugly. That day at the PATH station, it won't matter to me that you were only a boy when you said those things. I won't smile. I won't be warm. I'll forget any mean things I may have said back at the bus stop. I probably said some, because I will remember how you winced at the mention of your fat mom, crippled father, and port wine-stained birthmarked baby sister. My tongue, sharpened on figurative and literal sticks and stones hurled at me by neighborhood bullies, must have pierced your soft spots sometimes too. Yet you'll look at me that day with a tenderness that insists cruel words never passed between us. Your dark hair will be short, your skin clean-shaven, clear, the spots of adolescence healed and faded. Your face will flush and your eyes will brighten the way they used to shine when you were my round-cheeked running buddy. You'll look deep into me with such warmth that against my will, you'll begin to melt the icicles that numbed me inside. My name, when you say it, will sound like songs from playtimes past. In your eyes, I'll catch a glimpse of us singing on swings, flying above the grass where we found 4-leaf clovers. You'll invite me into a little chamber of your heart where you saved us. But I won't go. I won't be ready to remember how to get there. There will be no mention of what happened to us or what didn't happen that should have. You'll sing my name again, a young boy's sweetness shining out of your grown man's face, and you'll say, you were my first best friend. I'll know you're telling me you're sorry. You didn't mean to hurt me. You were just a kid. I'll nod politely and shrug off your words of apology. I'll carry my bubble butt and my baggage down the stairs, catch my train, and move on with my life. In another 21 years, I'll be middle-aged and softer inside and out, the rough edges of resentment worn down with experience. I'll remember how you said my name that day and the way you looked at me with affection. I'll transport myself back to the PATH station in front of the stairs, trains rumbling below, bodies whooshing by, and I'll be kinder to you. I will. Because by then, I'll know that love is the only feeling left once enough time has passed.
Woo!
Thank you.
This dramatic reading that you gave. Woo! I hope you voiced the audiobook because this gave all the feels.
I will. Yeah.
That actress training is coming into good use here. I love it. Thank you. So my first question, Light Skin Gone to Waste is a real provocative title. Was that always the title in your head? And how did that come to you? Or was it from the line that's in the collection?
Well, it started with the line in the collection. I had heard it, and I heard it years and years ago, and I just never forgot it. I just couldn't believe somebody would have the audacity to say that to another person. Like, I just thought it was so awful in so many ways, but I also thought it was interesting. It had a kind of like rhythm to it that felt very rooted in Blackness to me. Like somebody said to me recently, oh, I would have thought a white person said that. And I was like, child, please. No, Light Skin Gone to Waste. No,
that's us. That's us.
So I felt like I liked the line, and so I named the story, the individual story with that line. But then I thought about, the colorism threads running through the book. And I thought that this quest to be part of the white world wasn't all it was cracked up to be. So for me, like this quest to like not live in a Black community, to not be embraced by a community was not the ascension for me that my parents thought it was. Now they feel differently and they're entitled to that opinion, but their marriage did fall apart. They were miserable. They were horrible to each other. I was miserable. And so I felt like part of it was this strive to not be Black, to take advantage of light skin privilege, to be able to move into white circles. I felt like on some level it was kind of a waste. But my parents didn't want to be relegated to a Black community. They wanted the freedom to live their life the way they chose. And I respect that. On some level, I admire it. They were pioneers. But when I pull back and look at it from my perspective now, all these years later, it wasn't that great. I didn't like it. So, and then also there's the thread of my father's character, the character based on my dad, Phil, being the lighter skinned brother and getting less love from his mother. And then the character based on my mother, Velma, she was a biracial child who was left by her parents, light skinned and beautiful, but abandoned. I felt like there were multiple examples that you could say this was like Light Skin Gone to Waste could apply to these multiple things. And so I felt like it was the best title for the book.
Okay. So with this pioneering Black family eschewing all things Black for this all white neighborhood, and it's tennis courts and swimming pools and dance lessons and musical theater and all of these things. You have the daughter, Maddie, who is in the middle of it and doesn't know how to fit in, and eventually recognizes that she can't. And yet both of her parents are constantly telling her to be grateful.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a type of life that Black people should aspire to? One that is closer to whiteness, even if not in necessary proximity to them?
Not in my opinion, no. No. I think it's different now. You know, this book takes place in the 60s and the 70s, closer to segregation. So I think the goals were different. I think that was what my father was trying to do. I think he was trying to define himself as he wanted to define himself, and not be told, you can't ski because Black people don't ski, or you can't join a tennis club because that's not something Black people do, or you can't live in that house because Black people don't live there. He was like, I'm going to do what I want to do. And that's cool. But I think I felt like deep down there was some discomfort with what Blackness was. And I feel like maybe they had a different idea of what Blackness was, and maybe it was different at the time, but whatever it was, they didn't want to be defined by it, whatever that was for them. And nor do I. I don't want to be defined by my Blackness, but I don't want to reject it either. I don't think that anybody should necessarily aspire to assimilate anymore. I feel like people should be able to be fully who they are and, you know, function within a dominant culture. And we want to be able to get along, but not at the expense of our real selves and our culture.
You mentioned being able to have the things that white people say that you shouldn't have. I want to talk specifically
Black
about
people.
Yes, but I want to talk specifically about your character, Philip, because he has this thing that he does against his wife, which is smashing the white chicks in his neighborhood. And I was like, was that his way to say that I can have everything you can have, including your woman?
I don't know that he was conscious of that, but after I looked back at it, it appeared to be that. It might have been fully conscious. He's not here for me to ask him that. And I think if I asked him that, I'm sure he wouldn't admit it. But it sure looks that way, doesn't it? Like, I'm going to live in one of these houses. I'm going to fuck your wife. I'm going to
that part.
Like it or not, you know?
Yeah, it seems like he was so tunnel vision on having all the things that he couldn't have, that he was spiteful in his actions. And then again, telling his daughters, both Maddie and her half sister, that, you know, they should be grateful for all the things that he's giving them. Mm-hmm. And then they should be grateful that he's around, even though him being around was harmful.
Yeah, it's very complicated. And he's a psychoanalyst and psychologist. So you would think that he would be able to discern that those things might be damaging psychologically to their daughters. And apparently he wasn't, or it didn't matter, because there was a lot of damage. There was a lot of damage.
There was a lot of damage. And I kept like, how does he not see this? How does he not see this? How does he not see this? Like, that was my reaction throughout the entire collection. Now, I've already told you that my favorite character is probably Velma. And she has a line on page 79 where I just like screamed out loud, because I was like, that part where she says, you don't like how I'm parenting, come the fuck home at night and do it yourself. Mm-hmm. Even though Philip starts off as a central character, it's really the women around him who dominate the stories, and, you know, it's their viewpoints that we're getting. Why was it important for you to center their family life, their outside of the family lives, and their relationships, in spite of everything that this man was trying to do for them?
Because I can embody them a little bit better. So, you know, I spent more time with the character based on my mother than I spent with my father. Her voice is in my head, her perspective, like, I get her. I also her rage was so piercing that it was very clear to me where she was coming from, and how she felt. And I didn't always think that everything that she said or did was right. I think she was wrong sometimes, but I understood where her anger was coming from. I understood like why it made her mean. Although I don't agree that she should have been mean. I think she should have tried to work on her anger, but I understood that rage because later in life, I lived with my father when I was a teenager, and he tried to do the same stuff to me. And I think it's just, a thing that he does or did. I'm sorry, he's passed away, but I love my dad, but he had problems. He was a complicated, problematic person, but for some reason he liked to rub women's faces in stuff and see how they'd react. I guess it made him feel important or focused on. It put all the attention on him. I guess I can't really say what it was, but I understood my mother because he pissed me off too. Like one character is based on me, so obviously like that was going to dominate because I'm the one writing it. But I could understand from the sister Livia's point of view too. I could understand how she felt, and her experience was different. She wasn't living with him through that. She wasn't experiencing it, but she could see it and sense it and had an opinion about it. So
yeah,
I think my mother, the Velma character's voice is the dominant voice in my head, probably.
Yeah, Livia said something on page 88 where she says, "You expect to be appreciated for what you think and feel, as if no one's hurt by what you say and do." And then Maddie said something similar toward the end of the book. She says, "Your choices hurt, Dad." With this family story that you've pulled from some of your own experiences, what do you want your readers to take from it?
Well, part of what I hope that the book does is contribute to a cultural conversation that I think has been going on for decades, and this is my contribution to the conversation about racism, dealing with the dominant culture, trying to make it in a white world. It's my very specific perspective and contribution. So my perspective, I didn't feel was anywhere, didn't exist anywhere. I never saw that. And I thought it was odd and unusual. And I was trying to understand it. But I felt like if I didn't write this, nobody will ever know that a situation like this actually existed. And this is a real place. It's a real town. It's a real place.
Oh, wow. So I want to switch to a speed round and a game before I let you go for the afternoon. What is your favorite book?
I would say it's a book by a writer named John Alfred Williams called Night Song.
Who is your favorite author?
So he's one, John A. Williams, but I've read more and return more often to James Baldwin. I've read all of his novels, and I'm reading through his nonfiction, and all the books that I've read at least twice or sometimes 3 times. I just really love all of his work.
If Light Skin Gone to Waste gets the film adaptation treatment, who should play your characters?
I don't know about Maddie because she's little. I don't know if that person exists. But for Velma, I love the actress Carmen Ejoyo. I think she would be a beautiful Velma. I wish I could play it, but I'm unfortunately probably too old to play Velma at this point. For Phil, I don't know. At one point, years ago, I wanted Roger Guinevere Smith to play Phil. I thought he would be perfect, but maybe in the later versions. But I think, Phil in this book is still like in his 30s and 40s. So maybe Jesse Williams. He might be a good Phil.
He could be a Phil. I could see him being an asshole. I could see it.
He has to be a charming asshole. He can't be just an asshole.
Once the asshole starts to show, I kind of forget the charming parts.
Yeah.
That's just
But I think it would work better on film if even as he's being an asshole, you're like, damn, he's fine.
Point taken. It could be Michael Ealy. He's always playing some messed up character, but you like, damn, he's fine.
He is. That he is. Yeah, that he could do it.
What is your favorite book to movie adaptation?
I think it might be The Long Hot Summer. I think that was based on a book. I'm not positive. But yeah, that's what comes to mind right now.
So you mentioned you uprooted your Beverly Hills life and were able to move to South LA and support yourself and do this writing thing. If money were no object, where would you go? What would you do? And where would you live?
If money were no object, I think I would just travel. If money were no object, I would go everywhere. Like, I really enjoy traveling. So one of the places I haven't been that I really want to go to is Mauritius, which is an island off the east coast of Africa, but kind of far off the coast. It's sort of like, it's south of India, east of the continent of Africa, but it's part of Africa. And it is gorgeous. Some friends of mine moved there. That's the first place like I would go. I would want to stay there for like a month. It's got beautiful beaches. It's got an interesting culture. There's an expat culture there of Americans and Brits, but there's a lot of Africans, East Indians, white people. It's just a mix, and it just looks amazing. So I would go there. I also have not been yet to Barcelona. I've been to other parts of Spain, but I haven't been to Barcelona. I would just like spend a few weeks in multiple places, just going from Airbnb to Airbnb, traveling around the world until I didn't want to do it anymore. There's so much I want to see. I want to see the elephants in Thailand. I want to do a safari in Kenya and Tanzania. I want to see the Northern Lights. Yeah, there's just so much. I mean, I have traveled a lot, but there's still many places I haven't been that I do want to see.
And then you've had a career as an actress, a screenwriter. Now you're a fiction writer. What is up for your next act?
I'm going to keep writing fiction for a while. I have a couple more books that I want to do. I seem to be making a slight return to acting. So that might be something on the horizon too.
So my game is called Rewriting the Classics. Name one book you wish you would have written.
Another Country by James Baldwin.
Name one book where you want to change the ending, and how would you do it?
There's a book called Just Above My Head by James Baldwin. And I don't know that I would change the ending, but one of the main characters, I would change what happens to one of the main characters if I could, just to see what it would be like. And I don't want to give it away because if people haven't read the book, I don't want to spoil it. But there's a beloved character that something happens to that I would want to see what would happen if that hadn't happened to him. See that?
And then my final question, my little messy question. Name a book that you think is overrated and why.
Oh, I hate to bash writers. So, The Help. And you know why, don't you?
I do. You is smart. You is kind. You is important. This has been so fun. My final question for you today, Miss Toni Ann. When you are no longer here and among the ancestors, what do you want someone to write about the words and the work that you've left behind?
Oh, wow. I would like someone to write that I was courageous enough to tell my truth and to offer something that wasn't there before.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Thanks.
Big thank you to Toni Ann Johnson for being here today on Black and Published. Make sure you check out Toni Ann's short story collection, Light Skin Gone to Waste, out now from UGA Press. And if you're not following Toni Ann, follow her on the socials. She's at Toni Ann Johnson on Twitter and at Tree Lady Toni Ann on Instagram. And Toni is Toni. That's our show for the week. If you like this episode and want more Black and Published, head to our Instagram page. It's at Black and Published, and that's BLK and Published. There, I've posted a bonus clip from my interview with Toni Ann about how she relied on her screenwriting background to compose fiction with subtlety and subtext. Make sure you check it out and let me know what you think in the comments. I'll holler at y'all next week when our guest will be Shola Bemi, author of the novel They Were Chosen.
Almost every progressive-minded Black person I've met believes that police brutality is a thing and that it's wrong. But we don't see that level of consistency with a number of other issues that are equally as important and equally as damaging in the Black community. So it was hard for me to attach myself to one of those issues without touching on the others.
That's next week on Black and Published. I'll talk to you then. Peace.